Today, exactly 1 week after she signed the Papers, Please anti-immigration bill into law, Arizona's Governor Jan Brewer signed off on a package of amendments to the new law. That was quick. The original law required police in Arizona to stop people who look like they might be in this country illegally and demand to see papers proving otherwise. The changes passed bar police from using race as a reason to suspect someone is in the country illegally, though still no one's come up with any explanation of how exactly a police officer is supposed to know someone's an illegal immigrant just by looking at them. The new changes also require police to be stopping someone for some other potential violation before they can demand to see immigration paperwork. These changes seemed at the outset and are being pitched by proponents of the law as a softening of this draconian measure. But local reporters and critics of the bill say in practical terms, nothing's really different. They point out that the city and county ordinances that allow police to now demand to see someone's papers include things like proper lawn care and placement of garage sale signs, which means the new law still provides very, very, very broad authority and even encouragement for police officers to question people who they think look like they're in the country illegally. It still means you are presumed illegal in Arizona unless you can prove otherwise, and you can still be detained if you can't prove otherwise. Whether or not the tweaks to the new bill will affect the opposition to it remains to be seen. The Papers, Please law has already provoked a number of boycotts of the whole state, including by the Denver School District and the cities of San Francisco and St. Paul, Minnesota, all of which have banned work-related or publicly funded travel to the state. An independent truckers group is also refusing to transport goods in or out of Arizona for 5 days. According to the president of the University of Arizona, a number of out-of-state honors students have now decided to attend school elsewhere. And, of course, the Papers, Please controversy has come just in time for pro-immigration reform May Day rallies, which are planned for tomorrow in as many as 70 cities across the country. In Los Angeles alone, 100,000 people are expected at that event. Meanwhile, the great national recoil over the Arizona law looks like it is motivating Democrats in D.C. to make a legitimate push for comprehensive reform. If you were a member of the Democratic leadership right now and you wanted to get at least one more big thing done in Congress before the midterm elections, which would you choose? Would you choose the climate bill?
Today we're announcing the expansion of offshore oil and gas exploration. My administration will consider potential areas for development in the Mid and South Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico.
Would you choose the climate bill, whose political viability hinged on the president folding in offshore drilling to get conservative support? You want to try to get that through now? Or if you're part of the Democratic leadership in Congress, do you want to try for immigration reform instead? In the wake of the Papers, Please law that has shocked the conscience of the nation and has split the Republican Party right down the middle. If you're in the Democratic leadership right now and you're thinking which big problem that needs fixing do you want to try to get done before the election? Do you pick the one that pits the Democrats against each other and the president and the president against the party base and much of the country? Or do you pick immigration, which more or less unifies Democrats and which puts Republicans at each other's throats heading into the election? Joining us now is Eugene Robinson, MSNBC analyst and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and associate editor for The Washington Post. Hi, Gene. It's nice to see you here in person.
Rachel, it's good to see you.
Do you agree with this idea that sort of anti-immigration overreach in Arizona and the disaster in the Gulf have allowed immigration to vault over climate on the D.C. agenda?
Yes, for now. Okay. I mean, I don't know if it stays that way. And climate has become much more difficult now because of the oil spill and the offshore drilling. Do they actually get immigration done? I think that's an open question. But I think the politics of working on an immigration bill look much better for the Democrats right now than they look for the Republicans. And since the Democrats are in charge of the agenda, I think they would like to push on immigration.
Do you think, though, on climate, again, thinking about, and I just imagine the Democratic leadership discussions about thinking which one they're going to try to do. I know they say they'd like to do both, but they got to at least got to pick one to go first. How much of the climate legislation, how many votes that they were counting on depended on them folding in drilling? Was drilling key to the political viability of climate change legislation?
Well, it was believed to be key in getting the votes they needed to get it through the Senate and to move on. Now, but as you pointed out in the introduction, drilling was extremely controversial among the Democratic base.
Right.
Will be more controversial now. Offshore drilling is not.
They like to poke the base.
Thing.
They like to bother the base. The Democrats do to a certain extent.
To a certain extent, yeah. You don't want to poke the base too much. And while the spill is still happening and the oil is still approaching the coast, that's not really a good time to talk about offshore drilling. And so it's certainly you don't talk about that for the next little while. And meanwhile, immigration has become a big issue. And the Democrats didn't have to do it. The Republicans in Arizona did it for them.
Yeah. And in terms of what Arizona is doing, in terms of Arizona's actions affecting the national discussion, what do you make of Arizona's legislature and the governor amending the bill today? I mean, it seems to me that these changes are designed to take the heat off, but they probably won't. I think we're still in a papers, please situation.
Oh, I think definitely we're still in a papers, please situation. You say, okay, we take race out of the picture. You can't use race as your sole motive. There was already a provision in the legislation saying don't just use race or color or national origin or whatever. Don't solely.
So you can use race and color.
Right, exactly. But the point being, then what is the point of this bill, right? Yeah. I mean, let's be realistic. There's a provision that says citizens can sue police if they're not aggressively trying to enforce this law, which is an outrageous and very weird kind of provision to have in a law. And I think a citizen could make a very good case that, if you're really going to follow this law, and if you're not out there looking for Mexicans, you're not aggressively pursuing it, and therefore you're going to, it's a mandate for racial profiling.
And then we get the Tucson police officer announcing that he would personally sue to stop this law today, as a police officer, saying that it puts him in a position that's untenable.
No, it does. That police officer, the sheriff of that county that includes
Pima
Tucson,
County,
Pima County, says the stupidest thing he's ever seen. Police in Arizona hate this law, and here's one reason. You have a hit-and-run accident. There are 4 guys in a car who happen to see the whole thing. Well, if 2 of the people in that car are illegal, as of when this law goes into effect, by the time the police get there to find out who committed the hit and run, they're going to be gone. Yeah. They're absolutely going to be gone. Whereas now there's kind of a don't ask, don't tell understanding among police agencies there that, yes, you can be a witness and they're not going to, shake you down for your papers. This changes that equation, and police are absolutely apoplectic about that.
Eugene Robinson, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and associate editor at The Washington Post, MSNBC analyst, and my pal. Nice to see you, Eugene.
Great to have you here in Washington.
Thank you.